evening, everybody, and thank you to the officers for coming. Hopefully it'll make my life a bit easier tonight. Right, I'll read this bit out first. The meeting this evening will be live streamed to the public. Any exempt private items on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private. There might be a short delay. A recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Attendees are required to wear face masks on entry to the building and meeting room, which may be removed when seated. Would members and officers please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone and switch microphones off when finished. Reporting officers joining using Teams, use the hands up icon on your screen for questions and comments. Please turn your camera and microphone on when speaking and off when finished. And finally, please switch mobile phones off or place them on silent mode. Thank you. We will now start the meeting. Apologies.
Chair, apologies received from Councillor Chapman.
Minutes.
They are before you, Chair.
Yeah. Are they correct? Any amendments? No. I can sign them. Chair's update. Reference to executive regarding reference from the OSB on 19th of January 2022, Article 4, Direction Commercial Business and Services, Uses to Residential Conversions. Outcome of the recommendation noted. The recommendation was that the Overview and Scrutiny Board welcomes the introduction of these Article 4 directions and also encouraged the Executive to seek ways of extending Article 4 directions to other areas of the town. Reference from the Overview and Scrutiny Board, low traffic neighbourhoods, a review of pilot schemes submission date will be next Monday, 7th of March. Any disclosures of interest? The last part.
Hiya. Can I disclose an interest in item 14, please?
14, it's
14. The business plan. And I've consulted on it, and the nature of the business means that apparently does not preclude me from participating in the meeting. So is it okay for me to stay in the room? As it's not making a decision that relates to finances or well-being.
Thank you. Urgent business?
There's no urgent business, Chair.
Reference from committees and other bodies?
There's no references, Chair.
Right. For this evening, I've asked the officers the reports on the agenda. They should only give a brief introduction and key highlights. Also, any updates since the publication of the agenda. So there'll be no presentations tonight. So hopefully we'll get through these reports. First item on the agenda is performance report. Over you, please.
Thank you. Obviously, we presume people have read this, so we're not going to do a presentation. I just wanted to raise that we've made quite significant changes to the area around climate change. We've been working with the climate change team, and the next report will do a focus on that, and we're going to ask them to attend the meeting with us as well in case there's any questions on it, but we'll also take questions away tonight as well.
Thank you, Zoe. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is on page 41. There's a percentage for good and outstanding schools. Now, I don't want to name any schools, but how many schools, because they can or they don't have to give us the information. Do you know how many schools actually have given us information, and also how many pupils are involved?
So we've checked this with the team, and all schools that are included in this academies do provide information, and this is included on the report. And in terms of actual figures of students involved, it's, excuse me, it's a little small. 31,023 year to date is a percentage of children attending good and outstanding schools, primary, secondary and special. And then the percentage was 79.7%.
My last one is that on page 45, agency workers is a question mark, but on page 47, there is a graph.
Yeah, thank you. We've checked that, and there was 218 agency workers in positions at the end of the quarter, which is the data that we looked at. And most of these are full time, and we will make sure that we provide a figure going forward in future. The team will do that.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, one or two. I'll try not to keep you too long. I'm starting on page 25, looking at the number of homeless open cases. I'm just a bit puzzled as to what these figures actually are. The first three columns covering previous years, are they the totals that were accepted as homeless during that period, or the total number that were on the books at that period, which would of course include people from previous years?
We'll take that away to get that confirmed, and we'll provide that response in writing.
Looking at the Q1 to Q3 figures, it just suggests to me that they are actually not the total that the council has on its books, but the number that were presented and accepted.
Yeah, I believe that is correct, and that's how the figure is calculated, but we will check that to make sure that we're correct there.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. On page 29, I note that the unemployment claimant count is 1,000 people more than the unemployment rate. Bit odd.
As I understand this, because I asked about this as well, there are some people who claim benefits but are considered unemployed, so they might be on special schemes, and I think that's the reason why there's a difference. But again, we will pick up on that.
Okay, a bit further down, it looks, looking at the apprenticeship figures, it looks as though the council's number of apprentices has gone down, but the total's gone up across the town. Do we have any clue as to where the extras have come from? Presumably that in the private sector somewhere.
I don't know if you know the answer to that.
Hello there, I'm Debbie Paul Hunt, Service Manager for Economic Growth and Skills. Could you repeat the question for me?
Number of apprentices employed by Luton Council has gone down. Moving down a couple of spaces, where's the other one? Apprentices as a percentage of the total workforce, which I presume is across the whole town, has gone up. So the Luton Council number has gone down, but the total has gone up. Just wondered if you knew where the extra places are.
Yes, I believe that when we talk about workforce, we are actually talking about the council as a whole, and it's not actually Luton-wide specific. So the figures that we had for Luton-wide specific for 2021 were that there are 700 starts of apprenticeships across the whole of the Luton borough. But I believe in this one, the workforce does talk about Luton, so that's Luton Council and also the maintained schools.
Okay, I think the way this figure is presented could do with a look at, because it's not as clear as it could be. But thank you for that.
We'll pick that up. Yeah. Councillor Franks, I think that Colin, Service Director for Housing, he wants to speak. I don't know if he's making messages about the homelessness figure.
Colin?
He's on the Teams.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on Teams today.
My apologies, I didn't spot you. Would you like to answer on the homeless question?
Yeah, so open cases are all the cases where we haven't made a homeless decision. That includes cases we are working with to prevent their homelessness, but they've made an application, and cases that we haven't made a decision. Once we've made a decision, they will be approved. They won't be on that list. So I can't see the report and I can't see the words, but I assume that's what you have in front of you.
Thank you, Colin. That's helpful.
Thank you, Colin.
Just one comment and then I've done. On page 55 of the presentation, we're told that passenger numbers at the airport are going to reach post-COVID figures by 2024. It's just worth noting that the operating company is not expecting to reach that level until 2026.
Thank you. I'll take that away. Matt, did you want to come in on that?
Yes, Councillor Franks, we're currently looking at passenger numbers to see what the latest projections are, to see what the impact has been so far as we can ascertain of the relaxation of the various controls that have happened over the last month or so. And we will be coming back with an estimate of what we believe those passenger numbers to be, and therefore at what point we will again reach recovery. We do have the latest business plan now from the airport operator, so we'll be reflecting on that. We hope to have that information available shortly, and it will be shared with FRG if FRG so requires.
Thank you.
Councillor Wynne.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a general comment. I didn't know whether to say it at the beginning or to say it now, so I'll say it now. Not specifically in respect to this report. I was very disappointed to find so many papers and in some cases with print that was so small it was nearly illegible. I think the fact that we're not getting proper presentations just reflects the fact that the content of this meeting is doing a disservice to some of the professionalism that's been put into some of the reports, and it's covering areas in a cursory manner that really should have been dealt with properly. And I find that not good for this meeting. If I give us for an example, we have in tonight's meeting things like the housing strategy report, which is crucial to this town, and I don't think should be dismissed in the cursory manner that it looks as if it's going to be. Thank you, Tom. We've also got an employment and skills strategy report, which is critical to this town and to our community. And the fact that we're not going to look in any real detail at the LLAL Newton Rising annual business plan is also a disservice to the community. So I'm afraid, Chair, that I'm not at all pleased with the way that this meeting is being constructed or the way that it's being handled. So having said that, Let me turn just to the corporate performance report. Could somebody explain exactly what the Insight dashboard is going to do for us? How we can get at it, when we can get at it, what's going to be included, because it's referred to in this report and it's certainly not clear to me, and if it isn't clear to me, I guess it isn't clear to a lot of other people.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It's a new dashboard that we've recently introduced, which focuses on information at a lower super output area. So you're getting more information about the areas of Luton. And actually, we can send you a link and we can actually talk you through it. We did email councillors, but if councillors would like a briefing or any further information how to use it, we're more than happy to assist.
Have I been emailed already about it?
Yes, I think so. I think we did email, but it was a few weeks ago. It was early January, so I think it's better if we just email everybody again, just to remind them so that they're aware of it.
I must have missed it. My apologies. I'll go back and have a look. Right, now some specifics. I hope, by the way, when I go back and look, I'll understand how it's going to give me data at ward level, which is what was said in here as well. There are a number of, you used the green, amber, red principle on the measurements. The fact that 14 are green, but in total in amber and red, we've got 18, that didn't look too good. So do we have any indication what we're going to do about it to make sure we get more in the green?
Just to come back on the issue about the ward data, right, before I come on to that one, we have actually produced individual ward sheets for every ward. So I'll actually make sure they get sent out as well, which is like a 4-page briefing on each ward area. So I'll get those out to councillors if they've not seen them already. It might be that people have missed them in their inboxes.
Yeah, because I haven't seen any reference to that in here.
So I'll make sure that it's like a focus on each ward is how we've done it. I think you'll be interested, so I will get that out to people. So I think that we still there is still an after effect from COVID, and we are finding that has impacted on performance. And this is a major focus for the council, is trying to get our performance back to where it should be. And I think one of the things that we do for the corporate performance report is we don't necessarily focus on the areas we're doing well on. So it's often a slight misrepresentation of the council, because we focus on the areas where there's a concern, so that you're aware of it. So I think it might appear worse than possibly it is. But a lot of this is to do with COVID and that COVID lag, and we are expecting to see it improve over the next 6 to 9 months. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, we can't say, but when we've been talking to people about their performance, that's come out quite strongly, that it's both COVID and they have recovery plans to improve in those areas. It does depend on the area, but that's mainly what's going on at the moment.
Thank you. Just one other thing, since we have Tom Shaw here as well. You happy with the statements, Tom, that are being made about affordable new homes, because they're referenced in this report as well as in the housing strategy?
Happy then.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That's it for the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Can I come back, Councillor Wynne, on the agenda? You're right, it's a mammoth agenda, but within that you've got a range of really important strategies that are, in a sense, gone through a sense of quite in-depth consultation, which members would have been involved in. The reason they're probably here today is because they refer to the new financial year, and this is the most appropriate scrutiny meeting for them to come to. I'd like to think that members have had the time to read all the papers, and if that hasn't happened, then I think we need to query that, because hopefully those papers would have gone out in due time. But actually, probably in all of the time I've been to ASB, this is probably the most diverse and interesting agenda that you've probably had in front of you. If it takes a little bit of time tonight to go through, then I think we have to invest the time as members and officers in doing due scrutiny to those really important items. I think it's a timing issue more than anything else, rather than an issue of not being organised. So Chair, I think what I would say is, I think if we have to take the time this evening to give them due scrutiny, we should do that, and not give them a cursory glance, because they are all very important items.
I decided, David, given that all of these were going, apart from the airport one, which I believe has been pushed back, all the rest were going to the exec on the 25th of March. And I agree with you that to give everything the respect that it's due, we probably would have been here probably till midnight, and I didn't think the members would appreciate that. So it was a case of I couldn't make the agenda any smaller. They all had to come tonight, so it was myself that made the decision.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that. However, I do believe that some of the matters are of sufficient importance that if we don't cover them properly, we're doing ourselves as a scrutiny board a disservice. I'm sorry.
Recommendation is OSB is recommended to note the Q3 2021-22 outturn on performance. Does the committee note it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to a report, item 8, Luton Tree Policy and Tree Management Strategy. Can I just make a comment before you start, Steve? In my running battle with my 2 sycamore trees with the Housing Association, I found this report very useful.
I'm pleased, Chair. Thank you very much. I will be brief, obviously, because we've got time constraints tonight. So I'll take it that the report has been read. I just want to draw members' attention to the overarching need for this policy in relation to discharging the council's duty of care in relation to how it manages its own tree stock. It's not an overarching tree strategy for the town, although it has been written in a way where funding is available that we can add to it so that it encompasses a tree planting and management strategy across the whole borough. But strategically, this report is about how the council manages its own tree stock and discharges its duty of care regarding that. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any questions? All right. Hold on, David. Councillor Wynne, did you have a question?
Well, I'm not really quite sure. I also found the report very informative. It taught me some things about trees I didn't. There were comments in there about Wigmore, which I assume to be Wigmore Valley Park. And there were comments in which include Vauxhall Way. It seems to me that in both cases, unlike what is implied in the report, we're going backwards in terms of those 2 areas. And Vauxhall Way changes are all going to result in detriment to trees, I would have thought. And I believe that there are trees at risk. Is that the case?
The report sets out, councillor, obviously how the council will deal with those issues, and where trees are lost, then there is obviously a caveat value put on those trees. Therefore, the council are reimbursed to the point of the amenity value for those trees. And in both those cases, we have received large sums of money to replace the lost trees.
Okay. Next question, if I may, Chair. There's no mention of Wandon Park, and there's no mention of the wildlife sites in either Wigmore Valley Park or Wandon Park. Is there a reason why those have been omitted from the report, please?
Yeah, so the report is an overarching tree management strategy and policy. It doesn't relate to specific areas, Councillor.
It mentions Vauxhall Way, but it doesn't mention Wandon, and it doesn't mention the wildlife sites that exist in both Wigmore Valley Park and Wandon Park.
I'll take that away and get a formal response for you, Councillor. But as far as I'm aware, then obviously with regard to the overarching policy and strategy, it's not specific to areas. It identifies obviously an overarching strategy. With any relation to an action plan, if there was an action for those areas, it would be within the action plan attached.
Thank you, Steve. I can assure you that if I pulled those out in my notes and going through the papers, I will have found them there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have invented it. Right, I'll leave it at that. I'd like to make a general comment at the end, if I may, Chair.
Councillor Chapman.
In the report, there wasn't a particular, in the tree planting bit, there isn't any particular reference to what was done some time ago where certain roads were taken and turned into avenues. For example, St Martin's Avenue. St Martin's Avenue, which is in Stopsley, used to look particularly bleak a few years ago. Then the council turned it into an avenue and planted trees all the way along, and it significantly improved not only the aspects of the avenue, but also the behaviour of traffic. It slowed down traffic, which I, as you're probably aware, some research has been done that traffic tends to slow down in roads where there are trees alongside. And there was some comment some time ago, or some idea, probably 15 years ago, that we should pick 3 roads in each ward every year and green them in this way, turn them into avenues. I noticed that that suggestion isn't covered in the report, but I wonder what your reaction is to that suggestion and if it could be included within this tree planting plan.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. With regards to obviously tree canopy, the strategy looks to improve and increase tree canopy by 1 hectare by 2025. So there is obviously a policy to look to increase the tree cover. We haven't looked specifically at those areas, but with tree funding available to increase planting, then obviously that's areas that we can look at. Our current tree planting with regard to our treescapes bid looks at small urban areas within the public realm to identify for planting schemes.
Well, I'd like that to be taken away as an idea that councillors maybe of each ward suggest 3 roads in their area, you know, within your tree planting strategy that they feel would benefit by being turned into an avenue, subject to the agreement of the residents